Texas agriculture and every other industry in this state. He prioritizes Texas agriculture, always has for the past 12 years. So we think that he has done a great job, and we look forward to the next 6 years for sure. Just on a personal note, being a farmer and a rancher, he understands the needs that we have. He understands the needs that we have for a new farm bill that needs to get done. He told me just in the back just then, he said, come November 6th, we'll start working on that farm bill immediately. So we are absolutely looking forward to that. Things like the wildfires that happened in the Panhandle. Senator Cruz was one of the first people to say, hey, what can we do? What can we do to help these farmers and ranchers recoup some of those losses that they had for those wildfires? Again, Senator Cruz understands agriculture. Regulatory red tape. What do y'all think about regulatory red tape? Senator Cruz understands that and has worked tirelessly. International trade. The USMCA, he worked with President Trump at that time to get a new trade agreement with Mexico, something that agriculture totally appreciated. Tax relief. We know what's supposed to happen in 2025 with the tax provisions, correct? Senator Cruz has promised us that he will work to extend those and make them even better, folks. Looking forward to that. Do we have a border crisis? Does anybody? Senator Cruz understands that, has worked tirelessly on the border crisis, and promises that that will get fixed come November the 6th. Many more examples I could share with you, but y'all know them. One thing I will share with you, American Farm Bureau bestows an award on legislators that we call the Friend of Farm Bureau. Senator Cruz has won that award, that achievement every year. He has been a friend of Farm Bureau and a friend of Texas agriculture. Folks, let's keep working hard. Let's get out the vote. We have to get this done on November 5th. Thank you for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, now introducing Senator Roger Marshall.
We ought to ready to get up and dance here in this crowd, it looks like to me. There we go. Well, good afternoon, Texas. I'm Roger Marshall from the great state of Kansas, and it's an honor to be here with you, standing with someone who's not only leading the fight for our values, for your state, for my state, and for our country, but it's a true champion for our republic's future. My good friend, Senator Ted Cruz. I want to take a moment and just tell you about Ted. You know there's no one that fights harder or works more relentlessly than Ted Cruz does. But he doesn't just represent Texas, he embodies the spirit of this great state. Whether it's taking on the swamp in Washington or standing up for Texans, there's no one you'd rather have in your foxhole. He's truly a modern-day patriot. But Ted isn't just brilliant. You all know that he's one of the smartest people in the Senate, but his heart is just as big. And that's the part of Ted that I get to see every day when we're in Washington, D.C. together, that his passion for justice is matched by his compassion for people. He doesn't just care about Texas, he cares about Texans. Now I know I see it every day firsthand in the halls of Congress as well as in the chamber of the Senate. Now right now, we're in one of the most critical fights of our lifetime. The road to taking back the Senate and the White House goes right here through Texas. There's no Republican White House, there's no Republican-controlled Senate without Ted Cruz keeping this seat. Without a win in Texas, there's no Republican majorities out there to stop this woke left agenda. I want you to know who Ted and I are fighting for. We're fighting for farmers, we're fighting for seniors, we're fighting for energy workers, for law enforcement, for small businesses and our children. Under the Biden-Harris administration, we've seen our farmers struggle, our borders weaken, and our freedoms attacked. Colin Allred's been right there, rubber stamping their radical agenda. Meanwhile, Ted Cruz has led the fight to defend our values and our way of life. Ted has fought relentlessly for our farmers and ranchers, securing relief and standing against harmful trade deficits. He's kept Texas as America's energy capital, blocking Biden's regulations that would cripple our oil and gas industry. Now, what about Colin Allred? He's been a disaster for Texas energy. He's voted repeatedly to undermine the industries that keep us strong. But it's much more than energy. Ted has fought to secure our borders, protect law enforcement, and keep Texas a beacon of freedom. He shepherded major bipartisan wins like the FFA authorization, expedited bridge permitting in Eagle Pass and Laredo, and is leading the fight against AI-generated pornographic content on social media. He also keeps our community safe with strong support for sheriffs and Border Patrol agents, and we appreciate their endorsement as well. Now, while his opponents voted to fund the police, Ted has stood there protecting our families. So I would ask you this: who would you trust more to secure our border and protect your family, Ted Cruz or Colin Allred? Who do you trust to protect and grow jobs in Texas' energy sector? Cruz. Well, I agree with you. The choice is clear. As we look to the future, we need a leader who will fight for Texas and American values without backing down. Now, that's Ted Cruz. With your help, we'll send him back to the Senate, win the majority, and take back the White House. I don't want you to forget that early in-person voting starts Monday across the state. Thank you so much, and please join me as we welcome your Senator, Ted Cruz.
God bless Texas. What an incredible gathering of patriots, and God bless the Baylor Bears. I will say, as a proud graduate of Second Baptist High School in Houston, and as the son of a preacher, there are a few places on planet Earth I feel more at home than Waco, Texas. Thank you for coming out and standing up for the great state of Texas. So let me say to Russell, thank you for your leadership of the Texas Farm Bureau. Thank you to the incredible leadership of farmers and ranchers across the great state of Texas. Texas is an ag powerhouse, and every farmer and rancher in the state, I will always have your back. And I want to say to my friend Roger Marshall, thank you. Roger flew in from Kansas to come on the road, come on the bus tour, campaign with me. Roger's a fantastic U.S. Senator from the great state of Kansas. He came in and immediately said Texas barbecue's better. Roger is also a doctor. He's an OB-GYN. He has delivered more than 5,000 babies, which is one of the best ways to get voters to deliver him one at a time. And I got to tell you, Roger told me he felt very comfortable when he came to Washington and came to Congress, because in Congress there was a lot more crying and a lot more dirty diapers. Thank you for coming out today. I'm thrilled to be here. You know, every 2 years, every 4 years, politicians come in front of us and they say this is the most important election of our lifetime. But this one, like, holy cow. Has there ever been a bigger difference in presidential candidates than between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris? Like, wow. And by the way, in the U.S. Senate race here in Texas, I can tell you there's never been a starker divide than between me and Colin Allred. Now, some of y'all may have seen we had a debate this week. Little bit of a rumble in Dallas. I'm not sure how it turned out. But I will say at the end, I heard over the loudspeaker, clean up on aisle 9. And I'll tell you, my whole objective in the debate was to lay out my record and Colin Allred's record. Because I think campaigns should be a battle between the records of both candidates and the vision of both candidates. Thank you. In 12 years in the Senate, my top 3 priorities have been jobs, freedom, and security. I want to talk about all 3 of them today. Let's start with jobs. My number 1 priority is jobs because that's the number 1 priority of Texans all over our great state. We want jobs, we want more jobs, we want higher wages, we want better opportunity for our kids and our grandkids. You know, there's a satirical headline in the Babylon Bee. It says, Texas is building a wall on its southern border consisting of nothing but discarded one-way U-Haul trucks from California. Now, there's a lot of truth to that. For more than a decade, we've had over 1,000 people a day coming to Texas. They come for lots of reasons, but the number 1 reason is Texas is where the jobs are. Texas is where you can have opportunity for your family and for the future. And it's not rocket science how you get those jobs. Low taxes, low and reasonable regulations, and get the heck out of the way of small businesses and let small businesses grow and prosper. If you know just one stat when it comes to job, remember this. 2/3 of all new jobs come from small businesses. And if you look at the states that people are fleeing, big blue states like California and Illinois and New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, they all have high taxes, high regulations, and idiot politicians who do everything they can to kill small businesses and kill jobs. And so in my view, what this race is about more than anything else is keeping Texas, Texas. I've spent 12 years fighting for jobs in Texas, fighting for lower taxes. Working with Donald Trump, we passed the biggest tax cut in a generation, and it produced the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We produced the lowest African American unemployment ever recorded. The lowest Hispanic unemployment ever recorded. And when it comes to regulations, you know, I'm reminded of a few years ago, I was out in West Texas. And I asked folks there, I said, what's the difference between regulators and locusts? I said, well, the thing is, you can't use pesticide on the regulators. And this old West Texas farmer, Russell, he leaned forward and said, want to bet? And while I've been fighting for jobs, Colin Allred's record's been the exact opposite. In his first 4 years in the House, he voted with Nancy Pelosi not 95% of the time, not 98% of the time. He voted with her 100% of the time. It's like he walked into Congress, handed his voting card to Nancy Pelosi and said, "Here, Nancy, whatever San Francisco wants, that's what Texas wants too." So he's voted for higher taxes over and over again. He's voted for trillions in spending and trillions in borrowing and running the printing presses, which is driving inflation all over the state of Texas. And he's voted to raise taxes on natural gas and energy, driving up your costs. And I got to tell you, Colin Allred has voted over and over again with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, in particular, supporting their war on energy and oil and gas and jobs in the state of Texas. I'm just not sure which is which. He's voted twice against fracking. When Joe Biden issued a ban on new permits to export LNG, Colin Allred voted with Joe Biden and against Texas jobs. By the way, if you watch the debate, you may remember Colin Allred said, "Well, I wrote an op-ed in support of LNG." I said, "Well, that's really nice." And what'd you do when the vote happened? He voted no, and he voted to kill jobs in the state of Texas. All right, let me ask you this. How many of y'all drove a truck here today? Thank God this is still Texas. Well, Colin Allred voted in favor of Joe Biden's ban on gasoline engines. Biden issued an order that within 8 years, 2/3 of all new cars sold in America have got to be electric. Now, let me just ask you something. Who the heck are Kamala Harris and Colin Allred to tell you what kind of car or truck you want to buy? See, you're going to get me in trouble. The reporters are going to quote that. The Chronicle, that's going to be the headline right now, Beavis and Butthead. All right, let's talk about freedom. I've spent 12 years fighting every day to defend free speech, to defend religious liberty, to defend the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Let me tell you what Colin Allred has to say about the Second Amendment. He said, quote, "I wish the Second Amendment had never been written." Now, I got to say, if there were an opening for city council in San Francisco, this guy would be a very strong candidate. But thank God this is Texas. And you know, to give you a sense of just how out of touch his agenda is with the people of Texas, Colin Allred has voted repeatedly in favor of boys competing in girls' sports, in favor of men competing in women's sports. How many of y'all saw these two biological men in the Olympics competing in, quote, women's boxing? And I tell you, the poor women that had to fight them, they said, "Wow, these guys hit hard." He's also voted in favor of boys in girls' restrooms, boys in girls' locker rooms, boys in girls' changing rooms. Let me ask you, in Kamala Harris and Colin Allred's world, do our daughters have any rights? How about the right not to be in a changing room next to a fully naked grown man? And I'll tell you, just a couple of weeks ago, Colin Allred joined with over 100 left-wing Democrats, including most of the squad in the House, writing a letter about our military. Now listen, you might say, oh good, at least they're going to say something sensible about our military. At least they're going to say we need to support our veterans, we need to support our active duty military, we need to pay our military more, we need to increase our readiness, we need to increase our ability to defend America against our enemies. All of that makes sense. Amen, I'm with you on that. All of that makes sense, so of course not a word of that was in the letter. So let me tell you what Colin Allred's letter said. He said, on our military bases in America, we need to have drag shows.